Friends of the media, welcome to the press conference. The Fight Crime Committee has just held a meeting. The Secretary for Security, Mr. Tang, will first brief you on the law and order situation in Hong Kong in 2022, and Mr. TMHK, member of the Fight Crime Committee, will brief you on the commercial and technology crime situation in the second half of 2022. Secretary will have the floor. Good afternoon, citizens. The overall number of crimes reported in 2022 was 70,048, up by 5,620, or 8.7%. This is mainly attributed to the rise in the number of deception cases. There were 8,600 more deception cases, which accounted for 40% of overall crime. And for violent crimes and other major crimes, we recorded a drop. For violent crime, we recorded 8,830, down by 7.9%. Robbery and burglary, respectively, they dropped by 37.4%, which is a record low since 1969. For wounding, serious assault, arson, snatching and pickpocketing, we also recorded the record low figures since reunifications, with the drop ranging from 10 to 40%. For deception or fraud cases, we recorded 27,923 cases, up by 45.1%, involving a total amount of $4.8 billion. 70% of these deception cases are online deception cases, and among them, online shopping scams accounted for 45%, social media deceptions, including online dating and online romance, accounted for 18%, and employment scams up 15%. And another important category, telephone deception, the number increased by twofold, 2,831 cases, comprising Guess Who I Am cases and impersonating government officials. The government or the police has taken multi-pronged approach to combat deceptions, including intelligence-led operations, working with different stakeholders to prevent deception and intercept wiring of money, and a multi-pronged approach in publicity and public education. Since then, we've been able to intercept close to 100,000 telephone numbers involved in scam cases. And with a multi-pronged approach in publicity and other measures, the number of deception cases dropped by 60% from its peak in October. Mr. TMHK will give you more details on the commercial crimes in a moment. For serious narcotics, we recorded 1,436 cases, down by close to 10%. Despite a drop in the number of cases, we must not let our guard down. Over the past year, the police took intelligence-led actions, and we recorded an increase in the quantity of drugs seized, such as cocaine and cannabis. We seized an increase by 200%. And we also cracked down on a number of major drug trafficking cases and seized 485 kilograms of methamphetamine and 424 kilograms of cocaine and also cannabis butts. Because of the epidemic, there have been changes in the modus operandi of drug peddlers, including smuggling large quantities of drugs by sea and by air, with different methods of packaging the drugs. Now, sometimes they would pack and hire the dangerous drugs in large pieces of machinery, in the cocks and the hydraulic components in the machine. And with the easing of traveling restrictions, we've noticed sporadic cases in which visitors have brought in drugs. And we continue to take an intelligence-led approach in tackling drug trafficking. Starting the 1st of February this year, CBD has been listed a dangerous drug under the Dangerous Drugs Ordinance, and both selling or possessing CBD products will be against the law. And we have already arrested 2 persons in relation to CBD products, one of whom received an air parcel and the other was arrested in an intelligence-led operation in his home. Next, on youth rehabilitation, in recent years, many radicalized young people have been arrested and sent to correctional institutions, including those involved in black-clad violence. They were mostly incited or influenced by others, and about 60-70% of them have now shown remorse. And to help them rehabilitate, the Correctional Services Department will step up efforts in its services, and this includes a number of programs. Project Path is one of them. There are 3 major rehabilitation directions. First, understanding Chinese history and national education. Second, psychological reconstruction and re-establishment of values. And third, life planning and rebuilding of family relationships. Now, the Correctional Services Department has been sparing no effort in taking forward rehabilitation, and yet there are still some stubborn forces which continue to influence our young people and cause obstacles to our rehabilitation work. For example, recently we've noticed media reports referring to some people as prison visitation specialists. They would visit persons in custody because of the black-clad violence cases with whom they have not met, in order to practice indoctrination and brainwashing to instill in them anti-government and negative ideas. And in fact, the so-called prison visitation specialists are no different from other titles such as those hurling bombs and specialists in conveying those escaping from the police, and they just continue to chant the same slogan, and that is they need to liberate Shangshui or other places. In fact, the so-called specialists have visited as many as 59 prisoners in 395 visitations, and one of the specialists even visited 48 prisoners in 1.5 years in 211 visitations. These are anti-government forces who would like to continue to influence young people, and there are also those who would like to gain political mileage by continuing to practice indoctrination on our young people. While there are also those who profit from the visitations by urging prisoners to pay a hefty price for the supplies for persons in custody. I'd like to appeal to everyone that, in fact, they just want to continue to use these opportunities to brainwash you and benefit from the process. For parents, please refrain from buying the expensive packs for prisoners because they only seek to make a profit out of it. I also want to tell everyone that there are still those in the community who would like to pose danger to our national security, and they continue to cause harm to our young people. Let me give you this warning. If you want to endanger our national security further, we will take staunch police enforcement action, and you will feel the full force of the law once we have evidence of your law-breaking behavior. I'll now give the floor to Mr. Siu Chok-Kei to brief you on the commercial crime and tech crime situation.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Friends of the media, good afternoon. The Fight Crime Committee has affirmed the police commissioner's report on the crime situation in the second half of last year. Commercial crimes covers a wide range of law-infringing activities, many of them in connection with deception, like related to investment or job seeking. In the second half of 2022, the government recorded 1,579 job-seeking crimes. The increase almost 70% for the whole year. 2,850 job-seeking crimes involving over $1.8 billion. Now the gimmick was to offer high rewards, and there would be false internet websites and mobile apps to enhance the credibility of the scams on job-seeking crimes. Now, 1,290 cases, second half of last year, about 80% increase. 2,996 job-seeking deceptions involving over $486 million. Now, through social media, they recruit the victims on the internet to buy certain items, and they ask the victims to pay for the goods first, and then they say that they would return the money later, but later they disappear. Now, as for tech-related crimes, now 12,800 plus second half last year, increase of over 3,000 compared with the previous year, over 30% increase. 22,700 tech crimes, 85% are on the internet. Most of the commercial and tech crimes are related to deception. The Fight Crime Committee supports the government adopting multi-pronged measures to strike a blow against these crimes. Now, they work with different stakeholders to prevent the occurrence of the thefts, of the deception cases, and to intercept the funds. Now, bank staff also help to prevent 232 crimes, and the 1822 hotline, and over 800 cases intercepted over $1.3 billion of funds. Now the government telecommunications authority works with the telecoms providers in the second half of last year, set up a working group to fight the deception cases. Now they help the users to identify the hyperlinks and able to help to identify the criminal phone numbers used in these crimes. Now, the members of the public can use certain online contact search mechanisms to identify these sources of deception. Over 15,000 of these sources were identified. The government the government provides the Scam Meter Plus. In the first 4 days, in the first few days, it was downloaded 7,400 times plus. Now, if you suspect your acquaintances having been deceived, they should phone the 24-hour hotline 1822 hotline to ask for assistance and to prevent yourself being deceived. Thank you. And now, question time. Please raise your hand and no more than 2 questions on each occasion, and please identify your organization. Cable TV. Now, on jail visits, there were certain situations. Now, will you make the conditions more stringent, and will you stop the sale of these visit packages? And don't you have a record in connection with the top talent pass scheme? Are there certain loopholes? Now, we have at the Correctional Services Department clear rules for visiting prisoners. Now, for the packets that are taken to the detainees, they usually not very expensive items, but they claim the cost is thousands of dollars, and they use some of the money for purposes not only to themselves. Now, for the top talent pass scheme, now we are a pragmatic government. We will enhance the scheme to ensure that those who shouldn't be qualified wouldn't come to Hong Kong on that basis. From Ming Pao, on the top talent task scheme, 5,800 cases have been approved. Will you re-examine the criminal record? If you don't, would that be unfair to the others? Now, immigration policy concerns national security. Now, there's a loophole here. Now, the authorities consider the national security risk. Now, some people make use of the scheme to give birth in Hong Kong and to get Hong Kong ID card. How will you block these loopholes? For those who have been approved, we will not require them to submit anything new. Now, for the approved cases, we will examine them to see whether there are suspicious situations, to see whether we need to look further into them. Now, as for immigration policy, every sovereign authority would examine the basket of factors. Now, the background of the person would be one of the factors examined. Now, as for people using different excuses to come to Hong Kong, now when we check every case, when they, including on the entrance into Hong Kong, we will examine whether the actual condition is consistent with what they claim. And we have the right to improve admission.
That you mentioned two people. I think one of them visited 59 inmates for 395 times, another 47 people for more than 200 times. What do you think they are trying to do? Are you saying that by making the visit to inmates, they are endangering national security? If so, how do they do that? My second question is regarding Ho Jianhui. Can you explain why the visa of the mainland scientist is actually revoked? Do you think the matter actually affected Hong Kong's international image in terms of its talent attraction policy? Thank you.
All right. First of all, regarding your questions about the two people that visit the inmates for hundreds of times. First of all, you have to know that he has no personal connection with those inmates. And the purpose of his or her visit is basically to instill the hatred against the government and to instill the negative feeling about their development, which is in contradictory to our rehabilitation aims of our correctional institution. So this is a security threat. Basically, this is a threat to the Hong Kong. And so your second question is about
Ho Jianhui.
Ho Jianhui. All right. So basically, we have to see each case on its own merit. If we have evidence to show that the applicant is not actually fit all the criteria, of course, we will screen out those applications. Thank you.
Can you explain what are the crimes involved in terms of visiting
All right.
inmates?
Actually, I'm not saying that at this moment in time there is evidence to sustain a crime, but this is something that we have to look into. Is there anyone try to instill hatred, try to endanger the national security through influencing the inmate? This is something that we are looking into. As investigation is ongoing, I'm afraid that I cannot disclose more details, but this is along that way. Thank you.
好，我哋答埋最後一條。
Last question, please. Second row. This one in white jacket. I'm from Hong Kong 01. Good afternoon. About the so-called prison visitation specialist, rigorous law enforcement action will be taken according to you. Does it mean that those who frequently visit prisoners will be the subject of investigation? How do you determine whether the law has been broken? Is it dependent on the number of visits? And about the top talent pass scheme, I understand that recently applicants have been asked to submit criminal conviction records. Do you have an update on the number of cases in which you have discovered previous criminal activities? Of course, it is all right to visit prisoners, be it numerous visits. The point is the intention of visitation and the acts carried out during those visits, whether the acts would constitute a danger to national security. On your next question, we are now reviewing the situation. I do not have an updated figure at hand. This is an ongoing exercise. I can give you the figures later. That's the end of the press conference. Thank you.